Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I seek refuge with Allah from Satan the accursed in the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful. Today we have with us Jennifer Lowe. She is a registered dietitian who specializes in eating disorder. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. How are you, Jennifer, today?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Yes, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you so much. This topic, eating disorder, is very important to discuss, and especially when we have a profession like yourself with us today on the Voice of Islam show. So I wanted to ask you, as a dietitian, how do you recognize that someone may have an eating disorder?
So as a dietitian, obviously the people that I get referred to me quite often already know that they've got an eating disorder, but I thought it might be useful to go through some of the points that we might look for in somebody so that the listeners, people who are listening to the show today, if they're worried about a friend or a family member, there are a few things that they could watch out for in that person. So that includes things like if people are all of a sudden skipping meals, or you find packets hidden in their room, or food disappearing from cupboards, that can be a sign of binge eating. Or potentially they're spending lots of food, lots of money on food, but you don't actually see them eat.
Mhm.
Or they might be drinking lots of diet fizzy drinks or coffee all of a sudden in an attempt to fill themselves up, potentially going to the bathroom straight away after they're eating. So that shows that they might be trying to vomit after their food. And also, quite often people will avoid social situations where they have to eat as well. So if somebody's gone from being quite outgoing and wanting to be out, and then suddenly they don't really want to join in on any of those social occasions that involves food, then that might be a reason to start to think, oh, I wonder what's going on here.
So, Jennifer, just a question I wanted to add here. Is there a particular reason that someone might be going into an eating disorder, or it just happens?
There are so many different reasons. So they don't know the exact cause, because if we knew the exact cause, we could fix people much more
Of course.
easily. But there's lots of different factors. So there's partially genetic factors involved,
Mhm.
but also it's the environment that we live in. So, we are unfortunately in a culture and a society that values thinness above lots of other things. People do value thinness very highly in our society, and that really puts a lot of pressure on people. And quite often people who I see with an eating disorder will tell me that they just went on a diet, to lose half a stone, and it just spiraled out from there. So it can be as simple as that, or it can come from quite a traumatic kind of background, and it comes as a way of being able to numb people's feelings. So if they've had a trauma and they haven't been able to deal with that, then the eating disorder comes as a way of sort of trying to protect the person from those feelings, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you so much. And Jennifer, is there a way of approaching a or creating a nutritious plan for such individuals who have different types of eating disorders?
Yeah, so for every single client that I see, I wouldn't say there's a specific kind of thing that we go through with everybody, because everyone's really different and everyone's at a different stage of recovery from their eating disorder.
Hmm.
And also, each of the different eating disorders is quite different in terms of how they present, and also the evidence base that is there for treatment purposes. However, as a kind of overall, I work with the individual to sort of fight against that eating disorder voice. So anyone who's listening who has had an eating disorder or has had experience of this will know what that voice is. But for anyone who doesn't have a history of an eating disorder, um, people describe having this extra voice in their head that's sort of telling them that they shouldn't be having the food, or that they've eaten too much, or they need to go and burn that food off, or they've eaten the wrong thing, or they should be losing more weight or compensating for eating in some way. So it's basically this sort of constant internal critical voice telling the person that they're not good enough.
So,
um, so this is, obviously really hard for the person kind of living
of
through
course.
this.
In your experience, what are the common nutritional challenges faced by individuals or certain people in recovering from an eating disorder, and how do you help them overcome those difficult phase they're going through?
Yeah, so things that are often present is that fear of fatness. So again, coming from society that values the thinness, low energy intake or low energy availability. So they might be looking to be eating enough, but maybe they're exercising so much that actually they're not getting enough energy for their body. And that's something called relative energy deficiency in sport.
Mhm.
So that low energy intake generally can lead to emotional and physical issues in the body, as well as changes in the flexibility of the brain and how we can think. Um, and people also might be using laxatives, diuretics, diet pills, or vomiting to try and manage their body weight, which causes lots of issues with electrolytes in the body. So the potassium levels, phosphate levels, and magnesium in your blood. And also, by the way, it doesn't actually end up controlling body weight. It looks to, because it makes a difference to the amount of fluid in people's bodies, and the scales go up and down accordingly, but it doesn't actually contribute to losing body fat. And then people are over exercising, and they might have low levels of some of the micronutrients as well. So things like iron, B12, folate, but sometimes blood tests won't necessarily show up those
Mhm.
micronutrient deficiencies until it's sort of got quite bad. So all of those challenges, all of those kind of things that people go through lead to nutritional, physical, and emotional problems, and they're different for every single person. So just bearing in mind that even if you don't have the ones I've just listed, it doesn't mean that you don't deserve or need the help.
Of course. And especially when we speak about mental health, the aspect of mental health of eating disorder, how do you strategize and inform them in regards to the nutritional interventions?
Yeah, so uh, just giving people information often isn't enough,
Mhm.
because people can read lots and lots of things, but it doesn't mean they can actually change their behavior. So while some of my work's obviously about the education on nutrition and the physical and emotional consequences of the things that I've just listed,
Of
a
course.
lot of it's about really helping people overcome those barriers to change their behaviors. So people like me who have gone into more mental health dietetics, we use a mixture of behavior change models that come originally from psychology. So things like motivational interviewing, CBTE, acceptance commitment therapy, will use those sorts of tools and methods from in those therapies to be able to help that person to start to change. A key to all of this is working at a pace that feels safe enough for the person. You can't go in there and go, okay, well, you're eating nothing today. Tomorrow you've got to be eating normally and be recovered. It takes a long time. And we need to get to that place where they feel challenged enough to create the space to be able to change, but also not so scared that they completely shut down and go backwards.
Of course. Before I let you go today, for Jennifer, first of all, thank you for joining us. Do you have a message for the people who are suffering from any kind from an eating disorder and may be struggling to seek any advice or any help from anyone around them?
Yeah, I think the thing is, it's remembering that actually the likelihood is do something about this on your own, you're going to need to ask for help and support. And whether that's family and friends, which is often they're quite difficult people to ask sometimes. So maybe approaching your GP or another healthcare professional. There are eating disorder services that are provided by the NHS. They can't take on everybody, but your GP can certainly refer you to them. There are a number of us who work in private practice who can see people, but there's also online information. So if you just need a little bit more awareness, there's the website, the Butterfly Foundation, and a CCI website as well, which I can give links for, and maybe we could give those out to the listeners as well after the show, perhaps, because all of those have really helpful psychoeducation for people who are worried either about themselves or about somebody else that they love. I've also got on my website a free download to kind of what normal eating looks like, which because I find that lots of people, when they're in a situation, they don't really know what normal is, so they think that they're eating enough for them, but they're actually not. So people can just hop onto my website and download that for free, or onto my Instagram page as well.
And also, Jennifer, just before I let you go again, sorry, is there a platform where a person can go anonymously and just they don't want to show their name or the date of birth, just to be honest, just find out what's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So Beat have a phone service, so you can phone up, and they've got a helpline on there, which might be a good start to be able to start to talk to somebody, and they would then be able to give you more information about how to do the next steps as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us today, and
Thank
thank you so much
you.
for taking time out.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.